Welcome back to the Talking Archive. My name is Josh Jacobs, and our conversation continues now with Southern California radio personality Katy Manor. And we're talking about her time at KROQ 106.7 back in the 1980s. Now, what was it like working for Rick Carroll? Because the guy was a legendary program director.
Yeah,
and
he was.
A lot of people...
I didn't see him much. He was busy in his little, in his office, and he's a quiet guy. Quiet guy, but brilliant, as you well know, about just music and just so happened that, he got ill, and that was very, very sad. But yeah, it was just, I just want to let you know that it was just at the time, and I don't know, but it was very sad though that it was just common knowledge that if you wanted to get a job there, it was just common knowledge that you bought him drugs, and I didn't. It was just, I just won't, but everyone else pretty much did. And I don't know, it's just, I'll just say that he was good at what he did, at the timing of everything, the magic of, the music and the personalities. Can you imagine Jed the Fish, Dusty Street, Rachel Donahue was there. Oh, yeah. Richard. And, Swedish Eagle was just coming on. I see that he's on Sirius. He's got a gig, I think, coming up in a couple of weeks. I was just like, I should contact him.
Yeah, go for it. He's electronica.
Yeah, really good. But just the personalities, and, it was a special time. But I get fired, yeah.
And KROQ, I mean, you had, Rachel Donahue, her late husband was Big Daddy Tom Donahue, who really pioneered the freeform FM format in California, both San Francisco as well as Los Angeles. And I remember Dusty Street on KLSX after she was on KROQ, and then you also had Poor Man and Dr. Drew there as well.
I'm so glad you brought that up. Thank you, because I did little stints on Loveline.
What was it that kind of influenced the creation of that show? Because nothing like it had been on before. I mean, beforehand, when it came to dating programs on radio, you had Dave Hull, the Hullabaloo, with Dial a Date, which was more of a joke than a serious discussion about love and dating.
Okay, for your listeners, some of them know Loveline, some of them may not know what we're talking about, but it really was the brainchild of Poor Man, Jim Trenton, Poor Man. And he is like an adult, but really a child at heart. And his playfulness of being a slob and being so, his car, it was just filled with hamburger wrappers. He would be the first to say that. So, I'm being kind. But it's just like, but he was funny, with the surf reporter, just like, the restaurant reviewer. He was very, very creative and innovative, and some of it stuck, some of it didn't, but I love that about him because he was very, very creative. He's supposed to be a lawyer, but he failed the bar 3 times, whatever. But anyway, he was really he liked girls a lot. I mean, he was always hanging out with the bikini girls, and he was always doing those beach things. And so, I mean, he just was in heaven, being around a bunch of pretty girls and bikinis. But anyway, the Loveline thing came out of the fact that I think Poor Man was just kind of, what's the word when someone's kind of creepy, when they like to hear details of people's fetishes and stuff like that? It's just like we'd have people calling in with some very serious things that's going on in their lives sexually, and Poor Man would he would just be giggling, and it's just like Dr. Drew would be horrified, and me, I would be giving just the female version advice. But I guess what your question is, I think it was for entertainment purposes. It's you see what I'm saying? To have people go, I can't believe they're saying that. Kind of shocked.
Yeah, pushing the envelope.
Stern kind of stuff, like, you did what with who? And so, but then it kind of evolved, and so it really did turn out to be someone here's a number that you can reach for this. And, AIDS was right around that time right there. Can you imagine that? Yeah. And so we took it a little bit more serious about, being responsible. And so it was still fun to listen to, but it wasn't quite so, I don't know, a little bit more responsible for a radio station airing something like that. But of course, it got syndicated. I know Poor Man has got hard feelings because of, and he did kind of was not mistreated. And then Dr. Drew, of course, very, very successful.
Oh, yeah. I've met Dr. Drew a couple times here. He's come to our radio station before. So too is Adam Carolla, who was the longtime host after Poor Man left.
Right.
And in fact, he and Carolla and Dennis Prager have done some events before, like, here's the atheist libertarian and the conservative Jew together on stage, which is just entertaining in of itself just to hear those two terms right there. And then, just like you said, the creativity. As a DJ at KROQ, how much did you pick out the playlist, and how much did you actually have delivered to you beforehand that you needed to play when you were on the air?
Okay. Well, it was pretty much all formatted except one song an hour at the top of the hour. We could pick a DJ choice. And a lot of Rodney Bingenheimer, a lot of we'd have songs that come in and we just kind of all gravitated to, so we picked that one for the song. So it was we had some freedom, not as much as you think, but more than any other radio station in LA would never do that.
So you had a pretty wide variety of music as it was.
Yeah.
So you didn't have to worry about, oh my gosh, I want to play something different because I'm sick of this mix of music that's the same 106 songs over and over again type of thing.
Do you remember Nena 99 Luftballons? I remember that song. And it was just like one of these songs where it's just like, oh, I just love that song, or the Sundays, or I don't know. There's just certain genres that I like that. Ooh, this is my favorite. And I get to play it, but it was fun. And one of my quick favorite stories was I was doing a weekend shift at KROQ and putting listeners on the air. I mean, you're recording them. It's so much fun. And I didn't have a drop button. I didn't know how to do any of that. It was just, but I just remember it was around prom time, and this guy calls me up and says, Kate, my date to go to the prom, she just, canceled on me, and will you go with me? And it's just like,
wow.
So what I did was like, I used the next 3 hours to like bait people and say, should I go with Biff to his high school reunion? And I was just having fun, and I was just having fun with them. Anyway, about an hour into it, some mom calls me and says, Kate, I know you're having all fun and everything, but you have to go with him. So here I am. I'm only 25. I don't know. And it's just like, get the prom dress. He's got his tuxedo, and he tells everyone in his school that Katy Manor from KROQ is my date, the limo. And what the funny thing is about that story is that, okay, how many years later? I'm using my fingers. If I was out of the business for 25, been down here at K-Wave for 4, do you know he looked me up, Biff, my date?
Wow.
35 years later, and said, do you remember me? And we got together for lunch, and it was hilarious because turns out he lives a couple of miles where I was in Huntington Beach. It's just a small world.
Oh, wow. Is he married now with kids?
No, but I am. So,
oh, there you go.
No, I don't think he ever got married. But, very creative artist, doing screen T-shirts, and very happy young man. But, adult man. But, anyway.
That's great. And, who are some of the nicest musicians you ever got to meet at KROQ? Because you said a lot of people came through the studio.
Gosh, you got me on the spot. I just remember you brought up Video Beat. Remember that one?
Yeah.
That was Richard Blade's show on KTLA, and so I just remember, Billy Idol, and of course Ozzy Osbourne, and I'm trying to think of some of the others. Just people are. I've
heard about nice. Billy Idol being really nice. So even though he has this persona, like Saturday Night Live made him look like a jerk when Sting impersonated him in that episode.
Yeah. I don't know. It's so weird about artists too. Oh, of course at KROQ, I just remember Richard getting all the big interviews with, The Cure and Depeche Mode and, just the lines outside everyone, wanting to fawn over some of the artists. For some reason, the only person I think I would really fawn over would have been David Bowie, and I never met him. But no, it was just the vibe. I can honestly say no one actually sticks out of my mind.
Were they oftentimes? I mean, Tower Records back in the day used to have these not record giveaways, but record debuts at their Hollywood location or their Sherman Oaks location, where people would be lined up for miles and miles. It seemed.
Right.
How often did KROQ participate in those gatherings?
Quite a bit. Again, it was usually Richard Blade that got the big ones. That's probably Richard, not to put down any of the other disc jockeys at the time, but he seemed to want it more, work harder, do his homework more. Mm-hmm. He was just really dedicated to the 80s, and now we can see the payoff for him where, some of the rest of us are kind of doing side gigs and hustling. I don't know, but KROQ did a lot. Promotions were crazy, fun, but mostly the music-driven concerts. Of course, their weenie roast, think about some of the concerts that they do, their giveaways, and good memories, that's for sure.
Now, in addition to Richard Blade, who are some of the other radio personalities that you have become friends with over the years?
I'm trying to think. Well, I work with quite a few biggies right now, but they all have pasts that you someday may interview in the future. In fact, today, Kathy Parrish, who used to work for Coast, she's done 10 years middays here at 107.9 in Costa Mesa, Santa Ana, and she's going to be doing part-time and still full-time on our San Diego radio station, KFCW, but she's an angel. Anyone that's working at my radio station is not doing it for money. Mm-hmm. But then we have Norm McBride, who's also full-time on our San Diego radio station. He's got probably the best pipes of anyone I know. And, of course, he worked at KNAC, and he's got other radio stations. Bob Shaw, I think you know.
Mm-hmm. I'd worked with Bob for about 18 years, in fact, with Christian Pirate Radio and later The Fish. Okay,
and he's got the kindest voice, and anyone that does a morning show and gets their rear end out of bed that early, that faithfully, I have to just say, God bless you.
Well, he was 10 years mornings on The Fish, but before that he was the producer of the morning show as well. So that was like the first, I think, 6 years or so. So, I mean, for about, he's been doing it basically for 20 plus years now, getting up in the morning.
Oh my gosh. And if I didn't mention my boss, Brian Perez, who's all possible for you and I to talk like this, he's Mr. Radio, who I think he's got a twin because he's the music director, program director, host of Pastor's Perspective, but also is now going to be taking some of Kathy Parrish's hours, and he's just excellent at what he does. But I also want to mention one other person because I'm going to forget, Scott Shannon. We didn't get to pirate because I feel like I don't know whether this is the pace of this interview, but from KROQ, I did go over to pirate radio.
Yeah, tell us about how...
Only because they offered me a bunch of money, Josh.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's usually what gets people going to other stations. Like I remember when my first internship was with Oldies 93 CBS FM, and one of the reasons I wanted to intern there was because of the real Don Steele. He was one of the big influences of getting into radio. I'm the real Don Steele here on this Fractions Friday. You're a K with 101. I'm come back to the good stuff, baby. And so I was, all psyched and ready to go that he's going to be there. And they said, Josh, we don't have any interns for summer, but check back in fall. I said, okay, no problem. Well, a month before I got hired by Oldies 93 to intern, Don had jumped ship to KROQ 101, and then I found out what happened. KROQ gave him an offer he couldn't refuse, $300,000 a year to work 3 hours a day, 5 days a week. He even joked to Tom Murphy, "I'm probably Southern California's most expensive board operator." And but they said before that, Don, for about a week on Oldies 93, was off the air, and he had lawyers up the wazoo in the promotions room as well as the program director's office talking to see what could happen. And finally, it just got to the point where one afternoon he's in the hallway and here's Oldies 93, CBS FM with Chris Taylor. And Don said, "That's it, I'm out here." So he went to KROQ, where he remained till the remainder of his life. Ironically, his wife, Sean, had just started working for Oldies 93 by the time he left there. So they were working for competing oldies stations. But he just got an offer he couldn't refuse.
And you got that internship, and he wasn't there.
He wasn't there. I never did meet Don. I met his wife, Sean, but I never met Don. But I met plenty of people who worked with him.
That's a great story. Well, he said to me, this is, get them, people in radio have massive egos. And it's just, that's all you have to do is tell them how great they are. And so I get a call from Scott Shannon saying, "Kate, you've got the best voice, and I want you to be my sidekick. And I want you come over, you have your own parking space, such and such money." We have our own studio, by the way, on the top of the CNN building.
Wow.
All the other jocks had their other studio. Ours looked like a spaceship. Just Scott and I and like the producer and 5 guys. I mean, it was just incredibly, like you've arrived. It's just like I'm in Hollywood on Sunset Boulevard. And it's just like he was making, okay, if this is 89, I go, God, Kate, get your years right. If I left in 91, 89, that's when I became a believer. So 90, I was only there for like an hour and a half, a year and a half. Anyway, he's making $3 million back in 89. Okay, so $3 million. And I had some sort of maybe $10,000 a month. I don't know, but this was big bucks. And my general manager over at when I mentioned to KROQ that this offer's come to me, goes, "Oh my gosh, Kate, you'd be making more than me." And he said, Trip Reeb was my boss. He goes, "Kate, but there's one thing: you leave, you can't come back." Anyone listening right now, don't fall for the money trick. Just really look long term. So anyway, what happened was that I took the bait, and I want to be like your friend. I turned out to be the highest paid weather girl because he didn't have me I wasn't his sidekick. He had quite a bit of production going on, bills and wells, whistles, a lot of production and stuff like that. But he didn't let go of some of that control. So I literally just did the weather and maybe a couple laughs in the background. But if you want to pay me that much money, by golly, I'll do it.
Yeah.
And then what happened was
we'll laugh for $100,000 a year at least.
So anyway, what happened was this is what happened. We got some tips. Getting up early, and we got meetings to go to and critiquing. And I just said to myself, I'm getting, my dentist said, "You got TM. Have you got a stressful job?" I said, "A little bit. There's ratings, there's stuff we have to hit." And he goes, "Well, you're killing yourself." And I walked into Scott Shannon's office. I said, "I quit."
Wow.
And then he looked at me. If you've seen those posters of Diablo, he's got this stern look. He looked at me and he goes, "You can't quit. You're on contract." And it's just like, we're friends now. Please let your listeners know that. But it's just like, I couldn't quit. And so it's just like, all I know is the station got sold. He got fired, or he left. I don't even know what the records show, but I was literally the only one on the air while they were going through this sale. And then I quit because I was getting married, and I got a big old fat severance pay that paid for my wedding. Ta-da!
Oh, wow. Well, I know that, after the station started off with this bang, I mean, everybody was talking about it. I think it was like 10,000 hours of commercial-free music.
Yes.
And it was a variety of music. It was like the Jack FM of the day, if you will. And then, of course, I remember seeing the big billboards, Shannon in the morning. I thought, who's Shannon? I didn't realize he was a big superstar in the New York market and still is to this very day. I think he was on Z100 in New York City. And most recently, he was on WCBS 101, the classic hit station. And, of course, he's currently the voice of the Sean Hannity Show. And then, I remember seeing the bumper stickers, the billboards. It's not for everyone. 100.3 Pirate Radio. And they had this, these Valley girls like they don't play Madonna. No way. It was just like, which I laughed about because I wasn't really a big Madonna fan anyway. So even though I didn't listen to Pirate Radio, I loved the commercial because they were making fun of Madonna. It was, but then I guess it just kind of, petered out, if you will. I mean, what was it that made it big, but then what was it that kind of caused it to nosedive? What I don't know if you're...
I was not there when it, like you just said, first came out. I think they're trying to revive it by the time I got there. And looking back now, and I've talked to other people, they just said that, in fact, he didn't remember I told you liked my voice?
Uh-huh.
Well, no sooner I got there, he just made me talk just like you were talking. Hi, everybody, it's Andy in the morning. And it was just like, I don't talk like that. And it's just like, he was trying, I call it puking. Mm-hmm. And it's like, it's not how I talk. And so that false energy and from the diaphragm and just, whoo, it just didn't go over well with me.
It's like the opposite extreme. The opposite extreme.
I don't think LA liked it either.
The opposite extreme is the NPR format. Good morning, everybody. This is the news from the NPR affiliated station. We all sound the same. We're very monotone. We make Hootie and the Blowfish sound very up and down by comparison. This is the news for the hour.
Well, it's somewhere between the two of them, somewhere.
I guess I'll never interview an NPR affiliated personality now with that crack right there. But actually, I did. Vicky Cox, who's on KCRW, and we joke about sometimes about the. She says, "Well, I don't do it quite that way, but I kind of have to do it a little bit that way."
Wow. I love it.
This is the Talkie Archive. My name is Josh Jacobs. We're speaking with Katy Manor. And next time, Kate shares with us her time at 91X in Tijuana when the studios were down there south of the border, as well as her journey back into radio.